So we're going to cook this recipe from El Cocinero Mexicano, which is early 19th century. It's one of the first kind of cookbooks that came out after Mexico won its independence from Spain, became a nation state. And it sort of reflects, in some respects, the older Spanish, colonial traditions, but many cases there are local recipes, things that are traditional. And this one was kind of interesting because it is a sort of mixture of various different influences, some very, very indigenous, ancient ingredients, the corn, the tequesquite especially, and some are very new, I guess. The pork fat, of course, is. But this is a quesadilla. So of course the cheese also comes from the old world. But it's a quesadilla cernidas. And let me explain what that means. It means sifted. Normally a tortilla or any kind of corn casing that you'd make a quesadilla out of would be made with nixtamalization, meaning you'd use calcium hydroxide. The corns would swell up, and then you'd break it in a metate and make it into a masa, and then press it into your little tortilla and put it on a comal, and then fill it with anything. But this is slightly different. This is actually not nixtamalized at all, so it doesn't have that chemical in it. It's corn, and we're going to start with whole corn, which I'll show you in a second. And it is, you can hear the pot boiling over there, and it is then beaten and sieved. And I think what that's for is to take out the exocarp of the corn kernel, the outside part, which will make it a little gritty and not digestible really, and just keep the insides and make a dough out of that. Even though it's not nixtamalized, I hope it will stay together. I assume so. And then what's added to it is this tequesquite, which is kind of like natural baking powder. I'll show you that too. It kind of looks like dirt, but it's a sodium bicarbonate mostly, and lots of other chemicals in there too that occur naturally. And what you do is you soak that and dissolve it, and then the dirt sort of settles down, and it comes off of that. But let me read it to you, and I'm gonna read it first in Spanish. There's the original text I've just got on my computer here, and then I'll give you a kind of loose translation to explain what's going on in the whole recipe. So, quesadillas cernidas se pone a cocer maíz, put the corn to cook, con agua y estándolo se lava. So it's already been washed. Wash it, then put it to boil. Se pone a secar, place it to dry. Se muele, grind it, and I don't think they're using a metate here. I think grind it, however. Se cierne, and then sift it. I think passing it through a sieve is going to get the exocarp off. Se mezcla con la masa una poca de manteca derretida, with that dough a little melted lard, salt, and a poca de agua de tequesquite asentado, with the settled liquid from the tequesquite, de modo que la masa quede manejable, so the dough is workable, right? Se espolvorea con harina, so I assume he means flour, right? That's a wheat flour, sprinkled with flour. E formando con ella un rueda, make it into a wheel, bien esplastada, del tamaño que se quiera, but as the shape that you want. Se le pone en el medio un poco de queso añejo o fresco. Put cheese in the middle, either aged or fresh, según el gusto de cada uno, according to the taste of each person. Y se dobla oprimiendo las orillas, double over the edges, the ears, I guess. I think that's what that word means. Que peguen, so they stick together. En este estado se echan en la manteca bien caliente. So you're putting some fat down, and you're going to boil these little half-moon quesadillas in the hot lard. Bañándolas continuamente, bathe them, cover them in the oil and the fat, continuously por encima, each one, para que esponjen, so they poof up, okay? And I think that's what the baking soda part is for. Se sacan, se escurren, drain them off, and se comen acabadas de hacer, so you want to eat these fresh, otherwise they're going to get soggy and the cheese will harden again. So you want them gooey inside, crispy on the outside, fatty, and they sound wonderful, don't they? Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this whole process now. This is the corn that we started with. They didn't have yellow or white corn, so I bought blue. It's fine. And I just washed it. So this is still basically raw. What you do with that is you boil it and just water. That takes about an hour. Okay, and that's what I have here. And just sort of taste them to see when they're done. It'll take about an hour, and they suddenly smell really wonderfully sweet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drain these. Got my sieve, colander here. And he says to let them dry. The author says, I don't know if it's a he, says to let these dry. And I think that's so we don't have too much moisture in the combination. So I'm just going to sieve these and let them dry. And I'll be back in a second. That seems dry enough to me. He doesn't mean to dry them thoroughly because then they'd be impossible to grind. But as you can see, they've just begun to split open, very much like would happen with nixtamalization, but we're not going to do that. And to grind, I'm just going to put them in a mortar. That should be easy enough. And I don't think you want a smooth paste from this. I think you actually just want them broken up. If you had a mechanical grinder, that would be fine. But of course, they didn't have electricity in the 1830s. They probably wouldn't have had any machines at all, now that I'm thinking about it. So I'm just going to do this manually. And I think what will happen is the outside of each kernel of corn will come off, and then I'll be able to sieve them off. So hang on a sec. Okay, so that took about 10 minutes of solid pounding, but what I have in the end is not quite a dough. As you can see, it's just the ground up corn. And what I think we're supposed to be doing here is sieving it. So I'm just putting this, they would have used horsehair, oddly enough, and I'm just gonna put it over a bowl that fits. And then I'm gonna pass it through the sieve, this little piece of wood, and hopefully the dough part will come out the bottom, and the skins of each corn kernel will come off, will stay on the top. And obviously this is actually much more work than nixtamalizing, to tell you the truth. But let's see how it works. The logic of it is slightly eluding me, but I think this is gonna work. So I'll come back in a minute. I am not sure what the point of the sieving was, but it did make it into a very fine dough, but it didn't get the skins off as I suspected it would. But it's fine now, so let's proceed with the recipe, I guess. So from this point, we need some salt. And I used, incidentally, if you want measurements, I used 2 cups of corn for this. I'm gonna use about a teaspoon of salt in that. And then a little of the settled tequesquite, which is this liquid right here. You can see I've just let the dirt go down to the bottom. And I'm gonna use about a tablespoon of that, maybe a little more, I don't know, tablespoon and a half. 3 of these spoons, whatever that is. And then the lard, he says, a little thirsty, so the dough is workable, a little melted lard. So let's just add that. And to this, I'm going to use, that is 3 spoons, 4 spoons, 5. There are no measurements in the book, so I'm just guessing with this. And I'm gonna mix it up with my hand so it's workable. That's what he says, and that's, I think, what you should strive for. And I'm not using the hydrogenated stuff. I'm using just melted pig fat, and we're gonna cook it in that as well. I find the flavor is much more interesting. It's not completely, and the hydrogenation, of course, is something that is awful. I think, this is shelf stable also, but it's good fat. And essentially, I got a really, really coarse dough here. As you can see, I couldn't grind it. I worked more than 10 minutes actually pounding, but I think this is gonna work anyway. It is actually coming together as a dough, and it's pretty workable. I think that'll be fine. I'll roll this into rounds, and they'll be very rustic, but good. Okay, so hang on 1 second. I'll roll these out and then put some cheese in, and we'll fry them up. So you can, of course, form these with your hands if you wanted to. I'm going to use a wooden tortilla press. I think it'll just be a little nicer. I don't know. I honestly don't know if they had these in pre-colonial times, but by the 1830s and 40s, of course they did. So I'm just gonna put a little round in there, close that, press down, and I should have, in fact I do have, a nice little round like that, okay? That's what he says is take a little piece of cheese. Let me get some cheese. I am going to use Oaxaca. So it's kind of like mozzarella. If you want to use that, that's fine. And I'm just going to put a few pieces right in the center. Let's see what I'm doing. And incidentally, I used a piece of plastic on this so it didn't stick to the wood. They make metal ones like this also. Traditionally, of course, if you're making tortilla, you'd do it with your hands and put it right onto a hot comal, which is a clay thing. But I'm going to use the plastic to my advantage to close that up, as the recipe suggests. And then that is going to fry, like a little half moon quesadilla. So I'll make a few of these and fry them, and then we'll see what they look like. All done. So our oil is nice and hot, and I'm just going to put one more together and put it directly in. I think maybe 2 at a time will be fine. And he says to bathe continuously. So let's do that. And I can totally see why, because you want it on the top too, right? So I think almost definitely not deep frying these, right? Because then you wouldn't bathe it continuously, you just dump it in a deep fryer. But I think it's frying in a shallow pan like this. And they are looking pretty good. I'm just going to lower the heat a little bit. And if you're wondering what that tequesquite looks like, it looks like dirt. And it's there's the brand that I bought, which said not edible. But I better keep bathing. But it is a very traditional ingredient. Not unlike natron, I think. If you're thinking of Egypt and what they use to mummify dead bodies, it's sodium bicarbonate mostly, but also a whole mess of other things. Dare I turn these over? I think I'm going to turn them over, because one side is looking pretty good. Nope. Okay, let's use our thing. Without manhandling it. There we go. And I'm just going to let these get browned, and that's about it. It says to drain them, so I'm going to get some paper towels and just put it on that to drain. looking very happy. It's not a very smooth dough as I made it, but it certainly is holding together, and I think it's going to be nice and crunchy, and it'll have some roughage in it, I guess. I don't honestly know whether the outside of each corn kernel was supposed to come off or not. If that was the point of sieving or just to make it finer, but I got it at least to stick together into a dough. Maybe turn over once more. Okay, so I'm gonna get these out. I'll put in the other ones. I've got another 4 or 5 to go, and then we'll do a taste. But he does say to taste fresh, but I do want to let these drain properly. So I'm gonna do that. I don't know, how long did I cook that? Just for a couple of minutes, really. Woo! That's serious. Okay, I'll cook the rest and then we'll come back. Okay, so here's my second batch frying up. I'm just bathing these as instructed, but I don't want to wait for these to get, they're still actually hot, but I can't resist tasting one. Here goes. Well, they're crunchy. They are crunchy. Cheese is gooey. The corn flavor is actually astounding. With a little fresh salsa on this, I would, I'd buy this in a restaurant any day of the week. And you see that? It blows my own quesadillas out of the water. Honestly, this is seriously melty. I should keep bathing these other ones. But in the meantime, I encourage you to try this. It's really a remarkable old recipe, more than 170 years old or so, is that right? And worked wonderfully. Go chew. Can I just tell you how good these things are? Listen to that crunch. My goodness.